night secrets buried beyond reach. This history never revealed, but still known. Other black robes sit in judgment, dictate lives to penitentiaries, children to the state, erect walls that my people never had. We have learned to swallow Europe, where torture chambers, refined on their own, came here to rescue us. All my relations,
Hello, my name is Kaya Bruno. I'm from Samson Cree Nation in Massachusetts, Alberta, and I would like to start us off by acknowledging the traditional and sacred lands of Treaty 6 territory that we are gathered on here today. It's important that we acknowledge the history, language, and culture of all the many Indigenous peoples who've walked these lands for centuries. And I would like to honor all the residential school survivors and remember all of the children who didn't make it home.
Oh, Canada, Nikina Nitaskinan, Kisaki Hetinan, O Takawikiak, Nitehinak Kiwapamtinan, Soke Kiwetinok, Pakoite Ota, O Canada, Kasitos Gatinan, No Tawinan, Kanaweta, O Canada, Kinipawi Samatinan, O Canada, Kinipawi Samatinan.
This has been an extraordinary year, full of sacrifice and tragedy, and also full of promise. Remember, this was Canada 16 months ago. Empty streets, empty stores, empty classrooms, a country in lockdown battling a global pandemic. Though the pandemic isn't over, there is hope, and it's growing every day.
Hi!
Across the country, restrictions are being lifted, life is returning to our streets. Canadians are lining up and rolling up their sleeves for a shot at a normal summer. Reuniting with family and friends for the first time in a long time.
We are really excited. It's been a while.
A chance to celebrate those missed milestones, but also a moment to reflect. Because with the hope for a better future also comes a reckoning with our past. Reconciling how this country began and who paid the price. Entire generations still hurting, still healing.
There is a accidental racism and ignorance in this country when it comes to history.
Calling for real change now. In the wake of tragedy, Canadians are speaking up about what they want the country to be. A better country for everyone. Together. Well, here's a look at downtown Vancouver and Vanier Park on this July 1st, 2021. The last 24 hours in this province very much in keeping with the past year. It has been challenging and unpredictable. Extreme heat and dangerous wildfires. And last night, the village of Lytton was evacuated after 3 days of the highest temperatures ever recorded in Canada. This was the scene yesterday when residents had just 15 minutes to grab what they could and get out. Lytton's mayor says the wind-driven wildfire raced into the community in minutes. Residents were directed to some of the nearby communities, their reception centers there. A distressing start, though, to Canada Day for those families. I'm Ian Hanomansing. As we mark the country's 154th birthday, this day will look different for many of you across the country, and it will look different on this program as well. The pandemic has forced the celebrations on Parliament Hill for the second year in a row to go virtual. And in recent weeks, several municipalities canceled their own events, some due to COVID, but some in solidarity with Indigenous peoples after the recent discoveries of unmarked graves at the sites of former residential schools. So today's coverage will reflect this moment and the conversations that many people are having from coast to coast to coast. We have reporters spanning the country covering this day, reflecting on the moment from St. John's to London, Ontario, north to Yellowknife, and where I am here in Vancouver. Let's start on the Atlantic coast with Meg Roberts, who joins us from St. John's. And Meg, Newfoundland and Labrador has reopened its borders to travelers who are fully vaccinated. As of today, the province is declaring it come home year. A lot of people have been waiting a long time for this, Meg. And so what's the mood in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Well, first of all, in true Newfoundland fashion, thick fog and rain is what residents in St. John's are dealing with today on this Canada Day. And I know it's kind of hard to tell, but I'm standing on Signal Hill, which is one of the most historic sites in the province. It's where the first transatlantic signal was received. And, you know, this overcast weather has created a backdrop for residents who are mourning and reflecting on this day. There are people gathered at the Colonial Building in downtown St. John's as part of a Cancel Canada Day rally in support of Indigenous people across the country. However, many municipalities are going ahead with their originally planned Canada Day plans. But yes, it is a monumental day on the COVID-19 front, as the province will be opening its borders to travelers across the country for the first time in over a year. So today marks the start of reuniting with loved ones after some very, very long months.
The unpredictable summer weather of St. John's. So stay dry as much as you can. We'll come back to you later in the hour. Back to Gabor Salasa is in London, Ontario. The country, of course, coming together just a few weeks ago to rally around the Muslim community in particular. And Makta, what are you seeing in London on this Canada Day?
Well, Ian, as you can see, the memorial site remains in place here nearly a month since the Afzal family became victims of what police called a hate-fueled attack. Now, in this city, there are no city-run Canada Day events today. This is really a time for reflection, and what we've been seeing is that some people have been coming to this site to do that. In fact, if you can see right behind me, the Canadian and Pakistani flags blowing in the wind there, well, they weren't that way just a couple of hours ago. I watched from the distance as this man named Wael came up and fixed the flags, and he talked to me about being a second-generation immigrant and being Muslim and how hurtful this attack was. But he also talked about how proud he was of Canadians coming together to speak out against this, and he hopes that everyone will continue to do that to ensure that something like this doesn't happen again, he says, Ian.
All right, Makta, thank you very much. Let's look northward now. Juanita Taylor is in Yellowknife. And Juanita, what's happening in the north on this day?
Well, Ian, there's a bit of rain, there's a bit of wind in Yellowknife today, but we are here on Chief Dry Geese territory on the traditional lands of the Yellowknife's Dene First Nation. And we're here at the Sambucay Civic Plaza, where people will be gathering after a march that is going to be going through downtown Yellowknife. Now, usually it is a parade. Usually celebrations will be happening throughout the day here, but that is because of the movement that we are seeing happening all across the country. And Ian, some Northerners, they just don't feel like celebrating Canada Day the way they normally do. And that is because of the confirmations of unmarked graves of children who died going to these institutions known as residential schools. So Ian, today the Yellowknife's Dene First Nation and the City of Yellowknife will be holding a public event here to honor Indigenous peoples and to acknowledge the past. There is going to be a drum dance, a prayer, and a feeding of the fire ceremony. Ian?
Okay, Juanita, thank you. And of course, as with all our reporters, we'll be coming back to you as well. But continuing the theme that you touched on, let's go to Angela Sterrett, who is in downtown Vancouver, not too far from where I'm standing here now. Angela.
Ian, we are here on Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish territory, where people, as you can see, are painting a mural that says every child matters. They will be walking from here to downtown to the art gallery, and then to Crab Park. There'll be performances. Remember, it was here in this province, in Kamloops, where we first learned the preliminary findings of what could be up to 215 Indigenous children who didn't survive residential school. So today, people are really thinking, reimagining a new day for July 1st. People are mourning, and people are educating themselves, really thinking about how to mark Canada Day in a very different way that we did in the past. Ian?
All right, Angela, thank you very much. Let's bring in our first guest on this Canada Day broadcast, former Senator and Chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Justice Murray Sinclair. And Murray, you and I have had the pleasure of talking, for me, the privilege of talking to you quite a few times in the last year. And I'm wondering, particularly on this day, on this Canada Day, give us some guidance. How should we be reflecting or marking this day?
We're beginning a different era in the relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, and I think we have to tread carefully when it comes to how we talk to and about each other from now on. And this is our first opportunity, really, to do that. And the celebration of Canada Day is a particularly sensitive point right now to Indigenous people, and I think we have to recognize that.
And so what would your guidance be to people, particularly non-Indigenous people who are watching right now, who would like to, I don't know if celebrate's the right verb, but they certainly would like to mark Canada Day? What would you tell them?
Well, I think marking Canada Day is fine, and I think we all should be prepared to recognize that the significance of this day is about that. This is the day that Canada became a nation, but at the same time, we also have to remember that beginning with this day in 1870, approximately, Canada made certain promises to Indigenous people through the treaties and through other assurances about the kind of relationship that we were going to have together, and then they breached every one of those promises. And so now it's about dealing with those broken promises, if we can do that.
Let's talk a little bit about reconciliation. It is a word that you are very familiar with, that you have devoted a lot of time to, and it's a word I think a lot of Canadians are kind of maybe taking more seriously in the last few weeks than they had before. What is the path to reconciliation? What does it look like now?
Well, it looks largely the same as when we wrote the report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and I think that people need to constantly reference back to that document, to take a look at the calls to action that we put in place because we think they were to be taken seriously. We gave long and hard thought to those calls to action. And I think for Canadians, it's about taking a look at them and figuring out where they fit into those calls and what they can do about them.
I'll be talking to the Prime Minister later in this program. And what would you like me to ask him? What would you like to hear from him?
What is your plan of action when it comes to reconciliation? What is it you're going to be doing in 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What is the government going to be doing? Because you're the one who sets the plan in place and then makes it happen. And how are you going to hold all of your officials accountable for acting out all of the obligations of that plan?
This has been a difficult and challenging path towards reconciliation. How would you characterize the way you're feeling now? Are you optimistic?
I've always been optimistic, and I continue to be such because I think that there is goodwill there. But at the same time, I think that people tend to think of reconciliation in the softest possible terms. And as I said once before, this is not simply about being benevolent. This is not about being kind to each other. Ultimately, the relationship will move in that direction, but at this point in time, it is about recognizing the pain that Indigenous people have experienced, and it's about recognizing as well the rights that have been taken from them and reinforcing those rights, replacing those rights, putting them back into a situation where we can have the kind of relationship going forward that was intended to be had back in 1867.
Justice Sinclair, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ian. Have a good day.
And a reminder, the National Indian Residential School Crisis Line is available. If you need help, the number on your screen is staffed 24 hours a day. A few days ago, I spoke with Chief Cadmus Delorme of the Cowessess First Nation in Saskatchewan, where hundreds of unmarked graves were detected. And I also asked him about the calls by some to cancel Canada Day this year. Here's part of his answer.
What I would challenge is everybody on Canada Day in this country, if you say you're a proud Canadian, read the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action and read the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls calls to action. There's 231 calls to action. And if we can all own those a little bit in this country, in one generation, we would overcome so many challenges today that our next generation won't inherit this. We will make them more as dreamers.
Let's go back now to Juanita Taylor. She is in Yellowknife. And Juanita, you have a guest with you.
I sure do, Ian. This is Stacy Smith. She is Tlicho and from Nunatukavik. Thank you so much for that. She sits on City Council with 7 other people and, of course, the mayor. So welcome, Stacy.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, for sure. Can you please talk about how you are feeling today on this Canada Day?
Definitely. I mean, there's a lot of raw emotions that are happening this year. But for myself, I woke up this morning and it's raining, and it's a reminder that it's a cleansing to the land, and today is a brand new day.
It sure is. Well, we're seeing a movement happening all across Canada. How do we turn this movement into action?
Well, we're seeing a few movements. I'm recognizing some that are full of anger and rage, and some are very much in solidarity of change and wanting to move forward. So it's taking that rage and that anger and putting it towards something that's positive. We can't rewrite the past, but we can definitely shape our future.
Mm-hmm. Now, Stacey, we're learning this morning that there was vandalism at the Catholic Church here in Yellowknife last night. That was confirmed in a tweet this morning by the bishop. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, it goes back to the anger and the rage that's happening amongst people, and we've been told to be silent for so long, to just sit there and take this. And there's all this confirmation of all the abuse that has been suffered by our people, and people are not quite sure what to do with that. And so I think there's a lot of lashing out that's going on. And I mean, again, it goes back to the few different movements that are happening. You have a lot of people with anger, and you have people that, want to make a positive change for the future. And we're recognizing a lot of vandalism that is happening.
Mm. Just lastly, Stacey, how are you going to be reflecting this day?
Well, I'm gonna bring both my boys out to the drum dance and the feeding of the fire. We've been doing a lot of talking about residential school. My grandmother was in residential school. So letting them know that, this happened, and that, my children are important to me, and there's always room for change and a positive future for tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Stacey.
You're welcome.
Back to you, Ian.
All right, Juanita, thank you very much. I'm Ian Hanomansing in Vancouver with CBC's Canada Day programming. Angela Sterrett is in Vancouver as well, not too far away from where I'm standing. She's in downtown Vancouver, and Angela with a guest.
That's right, Ian. I am with Shayla Ouellette-Stonechild. She is an advocate and the founder of Matriarch Movement. And I want to ask you, Shayla, how will this year be different for you than years past when it comes to this day, specifically July 1st?
I think this year is different in the sense that Canadians are now waking up to the reality that Indigenous people have always known, and that this country is founded upon the lives of Indigenous children and Indigenous people. People like to say cancel culture, not knowing that the Canadian government and the Catholic Church are the ones that founded Catholic culture against Indigenous people. We also have to recognize that until the government starts implementing the 94 calls to action by the TRC, until our women are no longer going missing and murdered, until Indigenous people are represented in the governance system and in Parliament, or we have the right to self-governance, and until we get clean drinking water in our own backyard here, and until the Catholic Church apologizes, as well as the Pope, and until the Canadian government goes to international courts for genocide and apartheid, then maybe I will start to celebrate Canada Day.
What should Canadians be thinking about on this day?
I think Canadians sometimes need to do less thinking and more listening to elders, to knowledge keepers, to Indigenous voices, to our nations. Also, I would invite Canadians to dismantle their biases, their stereotypes, and their racism towards Indigenous people. I would also invite Canadians to write their MPs, write their MLAs, pressure the government into implementing the 94 calls to action. I would also invite Canadians to take note on what the Canadian government and the bills are currently trying to pass. Bill C-10, all about censorship. Bill C-36, we have the right to use our voices, and the Canadian government is currently trying to suppress that. And so I would invite Canadians to also open their hearts and open to compassion and use that as an act of resistance.
And just lastly, this has been a reminder for many Indigenous people. We know that there's been thousands of children that never made it home from residential school. What's the impact been like on the Indigenous community here in East Vancouver?
I think, you know what, the impact has always been the same. They have always sought to kill our spirit. That was the intention through the residential school, and that's still happening right now through the genocide of missing and murdered Indigenous women, through the lack of clean drinking water. So the most revolutionary thing you can do and radical act is reclaim your spirit in a country that has sought to suppress it. I would also invite Canadians and Indigenous people to reclaim their relationship to Mother Earth, to Father Sky, to the all directions, because this is the organic timeline, one that you cannot exploit, steal, or profit off of. And so really questioning, you know, how are my actions implementing the next 7 generations? Because we're in a time where it's needed to look at our intentions now more than ever.
Thank you so much, Shayla. And Ian, again, behind me, people are painting a mural. It says, "Every child matters." Soon, people will be marching to downtown, to the Vancouver Art Gallery, and then to Crab Park. It's going to be a long day for many people here.
Okay, Angela, thank you. Let's take a look at the Peace Tower on Parliament Hill, where the flag remains at half-mast to honor Indigenous children who died in residential schools. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Sophie Gregoire Trudeau join us now. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you.
Prime Minister, this is a question, a challenging question for a lot of people across the country. And let me ask you, how should we be marking Canada Day 2021?
Well, I think we've had a very tough year and a half with this pandemic, so a lot of people are looking at getting outside, gathering with loved ones again, and yes, marking the way Canada and Canadians have come together over this past year. But also as we mark Canada Day as a time for reflection, a time for celebration of many aspects of this country, but also recognizing that there are a lot of Canadians, particularly Indigenous peoples, who don't feel like celebrating, who are living through continual traumas from having the grave sites discovered, but also living a present that is continually marked by intergenerational trauma, by the terrible mistakes and efforts of Canadians or Canada in the past to assimilate and eradicate Indigenous culture and languages. So we have to respect and have room for this reflection on how we can and must be an even better country moving forward.
This is a personal question, but I hope it's appropriate to both of you. As you speak to your children now about these issues of reconciliation, especially in light of the discovery, the detection of these unmarked graves, how do you handle that? What do you tell them?
I think that's a great question, because as parents, and if there are parents listening, as parents, we want to teach the truth to our kids. And I think that one of the toughest things in life is not only to face your own truth, but face your truth as a society and as a country. And we've had very honest discussions with them. And I think that there are a serious way that we should review the way we teach history to our kids, and that always facing the truth, whether it's beautiful or abhorrent, is a very important thing just as a human being. So yes, we've had very important discussions with them, and it is a day for a deep reflection and recognition, and knowing that we all walk together, as brothers and sisters in many ways towards a more equal future in this incredible country.
And to impress upon them that we have work to do, all of us. It's about saying, yes, we have a lot of great things in this country. We've worked really hard to build an amazing country, but it doesn't take away from the fact that we have a lot of mistakes in the past that echo into today, and we all have to engage and commit ourselves to making sure that we're part of a better future as well. And that comes to kids stepping up, but it comes to all Canadians stepping up. It comes to governments and institutions and everyone being committed to the hard work of reconciliation and actually being that country that so many of us like to celebrate as an ideal.
Another huge challenge that we've been facing, in this case, in the last year and a half, of course, has been the pandemic. And I wonder how it feels to both of you now, where, a lot of people are feeling as if maybe we are seeing, we're turning a corner with this pandemic. Is that your sense as well?
Well, I mean, the first thing is Canadians are getting vaccinated in unbelievably impressive numbers, and it's no real surprise because we've seen how much people have been there for each other through what has been a very, very difficult year. But I think we're all really looking forward to a much better, much more normal summer that'll happen as we get vaccinated. Sophie's getting vaccinated this afternoon. I'm getting vaccinated, second vaccination tomorrow. I think a lot of Canadians are understanding that this is the path forward. But in the meantime, it's a lot of elbow bumps. It's still face masks. It's being careful as we're able to do more and more things.
And Prime Minister, one last thing on vaccinations. Are you worried that the pace may be slowing down? What would you say to someone who's watching now who is reluctant to get a vaccine or flat out refuses to get one?
Well, I think people are understanding that vaccination is the way through it. I've spoken with a number of people who said, well, I wasn't too sure about getting it, but I realized that it's something that I can do for my neighbors and my community. And besides, if you want to start traveling again, you're going to need to be double vaccinated to avoid quarantines and avoid consequences. So, we have seen Canadians stepping up in unbelievable levels. We're, one of the top countries in the world now in terms of vaccinations because, first of all, we got the vaccines here, and because Canadians continue to step up for one another like they have throughout the year. It's really been an amazing year for that.
And as a mental health advocate, I've met with people from across the country who are in very vulnerable positions, and I think that the more we work in unity and we do the job of getting vaccinated, the better we will serve those vulnerable communities and lift each other up and end this pandemic as soon as possible.
And Prime Minister, one last question. As you know, we are in the middle of what could be a really daunting wildfire season here in British Columbia. Has Ottawa been asked for help, and has Canada been looking for help in fighting these wildfires from outside the country as well?
We are absolutely ready to support. I know Minister Blair has been in touch with Minister Farnworth in BC. I believe I have a conversation in a few hours with John Horgan, the Premier, to talk about how the federal government can step up. We're going to be there to support Canadians going through a tough time. That's one of the things we do, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's on reconciliation, whether it's on climate change and fires. Canadians have each other's backs. We're there for each other. That's the promise we make to each other every day. And whether it's on marking Canada Day and reflecting on how we must do better, or whether it's on getting through this pandemic and fighting forest fires, Canadians are going to continue to be there for each other. And that's something that a lot of people will be celebrating today, even as we reflect on how we need to do better.
Prime Minister and Madame Gregoire Trudeau, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, Ian.
Part of the traditional protocol on Canada Day are messages from elected leaders, and we want to play for you the official message from Perry Bellegarde, Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, and from David Chartrand, the President of the Manitoba Métis Federation.
Tanse. As National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, and to help mark Canada Day 2021, I encourage all Canadians to learn about our shared history and the many contributions First Nations peoples have made and are making every day. I urge everyone to reflect on the darkness of the past and commit to doing better as a country. Every single Canadian in government has a role to play, and we must all work together to improve understanding and create an equitable, just, and stronger country for all. There is an opportunity before all levels of government to act on First Nations priorities. There is a strong foundation for continued progress, but there remains much more work ahead of all of us. We cannot lose the momentum. We must continue to see action for transformational change. Change that will bring justice to survivors of residential schools ending gender-based violence and systemic racism that continues to plague Canada's institutions. Change that will see our children and families in homes with clean drinking water and homes free of mold. Change that will support student success and a reconnection to our lands, our languages, ceremonies, and culture. Change that sees our people and nations thriving. And change that leads us to real and lasting reconciliation. On this Canada Day, I lift up the many concerned Canadians reaching out to First Nations and joining the effort toward reconciliation. Let's remember that strong First Nations make a stronger Canada and commit to working together in meaningful respect and partnership. The future of First Nations is bright, and with the right steps, Canada's will be too. Kanaskum Tinoa. Thank you all.
2021 has shaped up to be a very different Canada Day. As we face the truth of the residential and day school systems, we need to reflect on our country. I invite you to learn more about Indigenous people who contributed to making Canada what it is today. The Métis Nation is proud to have brought Manitoba into Canada's Confederation, leading the way for the rest of the Western provinces. We are the only Indigenous people to bring a province into Confederation. While our history isn't well known to Canadians and our people have faced hardships because of our contributions, the Métis Nation has remained strong and resilient. So today I invite everyone to reflect on our past, but also say this: while we can't change history together, we can make a better future. Miigwech.
We ask Canadians across the country to share what their hope for Canada is, and here's what some of you had to say.
You know, maybe come together safely, not to celebrate this country right now, because I don't think there's much to celebrate, but think about what we can do to make this a country worth celebrating again. That's what I hope for Canada.
I hope that we can begin to really listen to our Indigenous people and the many critical things that they've been trying to tell us for so long.
Canada who puts leaders in place who truly care about issues like climate change and Indigenous issues. The time for change is now.
What I'd like for Canada is a bright and prosperous post-pandemic future.
My hope for Canada is to recover from this roadblock we are currently in and enjoy this wonderful, diverse, and inclusive country again as we safely balance work and play.
That we show great global solidarity and help our brothers and sisters in all parts of the world to end this pandemic.
So let's show Canada some love. We can do this. It is within our grasp. Let's get vaccinated now. I'm anxious to move forward. Are you?
Welcome back. It is a day of high hopes here in Canada after what has been an extraordinary 16 months, 3 waves of COVID, shutdowns, but finally we're seeing reopenings and reunions, and very much thanks to vaccines. One Ottawa family doctor has been holding the aptly named Jabba-palooza. Take a look.
It's really important that we continue to push to make sure that every Canadian has 2 doses of COVID vaccine. The sooner we get to herd immunity, the sooner we can go back to life as we all want to live it. My name is Dr. Neely Kaplan-Mirth. I'm a family doctor in Ottawa, and here today we have our 4th Jabba-palooza, which is an event to immunize 588 people who are my patients and other community members in Ottawa. It's been an amazing experience. We've had almost 1,800 people who we've immunized so far, and we're still going to give everybody their second doses. We'll have done more than 3,000 people by the time we're done, which will be in August. And the community volunteers who stepped up and medical students who stepped up, everyone has been incredibly excited to be part of this.
There's a real sense of optimism, for sure. And it's great to see events like this where the community can come and get their shots, and I think it gives people a sense of confidence that we've kind of turned the corner, hopefully.
I feel good. I feel like it's going to give me a bit of freedom to do some of the things I haven't done in the last year.
I just want to get out of my basement and stop working in my basement. I mean, I'm looking forward to being in the theater, going to see theater, getting on a plane and going somewhere. You know, the usual stuff.
Well done. Congratulations. We did it.
I just want to get out of my basement. I think we can all relate to that. And let's check in with the vaccination clinic here in Vancouver. Dr. Bahar Najafi is a family physician, and she has been vaccinating people on this Canada Day. And Dr. Najafi, what is the mood like where you are?
Hi, Ian. Thanks for having me, and good morning to you. The mood is great, as it has been since early April, since we started vaccinating people at the Italian Cultural Center here in Vancouver. We started at 8:30 today, hoping to reach a number of 1,600 people, who are mostly going to be people coming in to get their second dose of the COVID vaccine. And since early April, we've vaccinated more than 100,000 people at this site alone, which is something we're very, very proud of.
So last Saturday, I got my second shot at the Vancouver Convention Center. Huge lineups, nobody complaining. I could hear people in front and behind me in the line talking about what their plans were going to be once their immunity was boosted in 2 or 3 weeks. What are you hearing from people that you're vaccinating?
You know, it has been overall, like, it has been positive from every aspect. It's been sort of different when we first started. It was a lot of people who'd been socially isolated over a year, and it was such a cathartic moment for them to come out, be faced with all this positive energy, have a hope that they're going to be able to go out and not fear that they're going to get severely ill. And then as we started doing the younger crowds and, the people like 12 years and over, it was a whole other level of people being able to get back and socialize with their friends, and going back to life as we knew it before the pandemic started.
Dr. Najafi, so nice to speak with you, and so nice to be talking about COVID and optimism at the same time. Thank you very much, and have a great day at the vaccination clinic.
You too.
Canadians are also reuniting with family and friends, and for some, like a family you're about to see in Halifax, that reunion took place in their new family-run diner.
Hello, Halifax and beyond. This is day one.
Hi, my name is Kelly Jo Beck,
And here in Fairview, Nova Scotia, we are running a family-run business called Easy Street Diner.
In here we had a leak situation, unfortunately.
My partner, who is also the chef, she and I renovated the space ourselves and did about 99% of the work here. So everything you see has been our literal blood, sweat, and tears have gone into it. COVID impacted our plans in a number of ways for the diner. It sidelined us initially in getting the location that we wanted, and then it sidelined us again with our grand opening plans. But we are now open and a lot of the restrictions have eased, so we're just really excited. The hardest part for my family and I during COVID is that we haven't been able to get together. So I think I'm most excited to be able to welcome my guests as well as my family here into the restaurant.
Hey guys, come on in.
Hey. Finally getting to see my family after so many months apart was really refreshing. It was surprisingly emotional. We just enjoyed a meal together and kind of reminisced about, the last few months.
I got a cake.
And I finally get to hug a lot of my relatives I haven't gotten to hug in a long time.
Newfoundland and Labrador lifted travel restrictions today. Meg Roberts joins us once again from a rainy St. John's. And, I know the weather's not great. More broadly, though, what's the mood like in St. John's?
Yeah, we're having a very typical July 1st here in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm standing on top of Signal Hill, which is one of the province's most historic sites, as it's the world's first transatlantic wireless signal was received here. And normally in the summer, around this time, there is lots of tourism that's happening, but that obviously hasn't happened for the past year as officials closed the border last year. But today is the day that the province reopens. The 2-week self-isolation period has been lifted for vaccinated travelers. So, Newfoundland and Labrador has done a good job at stopping the spread of COVID-19, but it's definitely been challenging for people who want to see their loved ones. This is also good news for the tourism industry that has been hit very hard by the travel restrictions and the pandemic. And I'm now joined by Donnie Cody. He's with the George Street Association, which is home to one of the largest music festivals in the province. Thank you so much for joining me, Donnie.
Well, thank you so much for asking me to come up here.
Today, the borders are opening. How are those in the tourism industry feeling?
I think everyone is anticipating things getting back to the memory of how things used to be. We've been working very hard, George Street Association specifically, really leaning in together as members to make sure we can provide a safe and enjoyable summer season for all.
Are you hopeful that the tourism industry will have a good summer? I know we're just, lifting some of those restrictions now.
I think given what's going on and folks being able to come into the province and all of our operators operating safely with all the precautions, we are definitely anticipating a great summer here in the city.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us. That was Donnie Cody. He is with the George Street Association. Now, there will be some festivities, Canada Day festivities happening down on George Street, and there are other municipalities across the province that will also be continuing with their original Canada Day plans. There also will be municipalities that won't be celebrating Canada Day today, St. John's being one of them. Back to you, Ian.
All right, thank you very much. And it is sure nice to see places opening up to tourism once again. Here in British Columbia, we didn't have the borders closed the way Newfoundland and Labrador did, but we did have restrictions on travel that was unnecessary, but those are being lifted now, and you can just tell that spirits are being lifted in this city as well. Well, let's go to London, Ontario now. Magda Gabrisalasa is there, and Magda, you have a guest with you as well.
Yeah, Hassan Mustafa is here with me. We've been talking about how this has been a difficult time for the Muslim community, but you've also been sharing how there have been surprising signs of support. Tell me about the letter you recently received.
Well, thank you, Magda. It's been a horrible and difficult month for my community after the killing of the Afzal family that happened here. But there's been tremendous support and help we've been received and comforting from the community. And I just wanted to share one long, touching, thoughtful letter that I received from a classmate of mine and she's referencing elementary school from 35 years ago. And she writes, "When I think back to our days at school in grade 8, it makes me ashamed to realize that I passively witnessed racism towards you every single day on the school bus. I'm sorry that I never had the courage to scream stop or even report it to the principal. I'm grateful that my son and his friends seem to have more compassion, but the youthful age of this terrorist proves there's lots of ignorance to combat in every generation and in every quiet neighborhood."
What did it feel like to get that letter all these years later after what happened here?
It's been a traumatic time, and these words from individuals, from strangers, from friends, from the wider community has really been helpful and comforting, and it's helped our community start to heal.
So on this Canada Day, what would you like people to think about and do moving forward?
Well, it's a Canada Day of mixed emotions for us. And so while this was racism in its most violent and most extreme form, there are versions of micro-racism that happen to Muslims and people of racial minorities that happen every single day. From the young boy Muhammad on the school ground getting bullied or beat up, from the young girl applying for her first job whose resume gets flipped over without an interview, to the woman at the grocery store who receives dirty looks or is told to go back to her country because of her dress or hijab, to the unemployed engineer with a PhD from back home who sends out over 100 resumes and doesn't get a single interview. Canada is still the best country on earth, and I love it to tears, but it's not the perfect country that we thought it was. And it's going to take years and continued effort to make Canada the inclusive, welcoming, diverse country we all want it to be.
So it's really a time of reflection here in London, Ontario, Ian.
All right, Magda, thank you very much. As we go to break, we caught up with one Edmonton movie club as they met in person for the first time since before the pandemic. We'll be right back.
It's really exciting to be back, and when things are opening up, and it's like a celebration.
What we've been doing so far is just video calls to each other, and after a long time that we are meeting.
Hello. Coming back to the movie theater is a great opportunity to meet some of my friends. I am Madan Salvaraj. I'm the executive director of Edmonton Movie Club. I am originally from India. I am really excited, and I hope our friends and families and fans are also excited to come and watch our first screening after 15 months on big screen. I have grown up watching films, like being from a middle-class family back in India. We always used to watch films as entertainment. It's like just a fun time, right? Like you come, the buzz, the entertainment, the fun factor, people hoot, and like it's just really a fun time. For me, this movie club is actually how I can attach to my culture. I think that's actually what every first and second gen immigrant family is like, how we can be closer to our culture. I think for me, this is a great platform to educate people about the culture, and it'll end up in, better understanding and peace and harmony in the society.
Welcome back. This is Vancouver on Canada Day. The province is moving to step 3 of its reopening phases. Casinos and nightclubs can open their doors again. The provincial mask mandate has been lifted and more people can gather indoors and outdoors together. Mayor Naheed Nenshi joins us now from Calgary. And Mayor Nenshi, always nice to speak with you. Your province, Alberta, has kind of boldly been ahead of the rest of the country when it comes to its reopening plans as of today, July 1st. How does that feel?
You know, I think people are happy to see the pandemic behind us. I know a lot of folks have very mixed emotions. Some will want to move slower, some will ready to go to the Calgary Stampede. And ultimately, we're just going to respect one another. We're going to make sure we're pushing hard on getting folks their second doses, and we're going to keep everyone safe. Here in Calgary, by the way, the mask mandate remains in place. City Council will be discussing its removal on Monday.
You have been mayor of Calgary for many Canada Days. How does this one feel to you?
You know, my Facebook memories yesterday popped up saying I couldn't decide which of the Canada Day invitations I should accept, so I accepted them all. And that's how I started as mayor in 2011. I typically will do anywhere from 25 to 30 events on Canada Day, starting early in the morning and ending when I push the magic mayor button to start the fireworks. This year, obviously, is very different. You can't see it in the picture, but I'm still wearing my Maple Leaf Converse. But today I'm wearing an orange shirt. And ultimately, this year's Canada Day is a bit more somber. We are spending time celebrating the great things about Canada, but also reflecting on the horrific aspects of our history, particularly our lack of progress towards reconciliation, or what Elder Casey Good Eagle told me yesterday we should be calling reconciliation. And so we're doing a bit of both. You know, Ian, this year marks the 50th anniversary since my family came to Canada, this month, as a matter of fact. My mother had just found out she was pregnant with me, so now you know how old I am. And when I reflect on those 50 years, I realize that we've got a lot to celebrate. What we built here is special in the world. Let's not forget that. But let's also use this as a chance to commit ourselves to a better Canada, to a Canada that truly is anti-racist, to a Canada that truly fits on that path of reconciliation.
And so you always sound like an optimistic person, but you're also a very realistic person. In terms of that path to reconciliation with Indigenous people, that path towards, as you describe it, anti-racism, how do you feel about where Canada is on that path?
Look, I'm unbelievably optimistic. And, you know, I often say mayors have to be optimistic. It's a job requirement. But I'm wrapping up my political life here, and I still remain incredibly optimistic. You know, the Aga Khan has called Canada the most successful experiment in pluralism in human history, and I believe that. But that doesn't mean we're done. And I think that as Canadians, we're sophisticated enough to be able to embrace a celebration of the extraordinary nation we've built and a commitment to make it even better, to go from a place that strives to be not racist to a place that is actively anti-racist. And I'm so optimistic. I know we can do it. And I'm using this Canada Day to actually recommit myself to it. And I hope everyone does as well. So tonight we're going to have fireworks. But those fireworks, instead of being preceded by me doing an excited countdown, are preceded by a blessing from an elder, a moment of silence, and a way to honor the children that we've lost. And, you know, I was told by someone recently that in some East Asian cultures, the fireworks are used to chase away evil spirits. And so that's how I'm thinking about it tonight, that those fireworks, the sound will chase away the evil and the light will light our way to a better future. So yeah, I'm very optimistic.
We have just a few seconds left, Mayor Nenshi, but you know, earlier I wondered whether I should be using the verb celebrate when it comes to Canada Day. Do you feel we should be celebrating Canada Day?
I've struggled with that myself. I think there is a lot to celebrate. But this year, I think, is about celebration, it's about commemoration, but it's actually about commitment to real action. And I think we can do it.
All right. Mayor Nenshi, always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. Happy Canada Day, everyone. Bon fête de Canada, tout le monde.
We heard from Kaya Bruno at the top of our program. She sang the national anthem in Cree. This is a very different Canada Day for many people. For so many Indigenous people, healing and reconciliation is at the center of what needs to happen next. Here she is again in her own words.
Women are sacred, women are powerful, and the jingle dress dance acts as a reference to the power of woman. The jingle dress dance is a healing dance in my culture. I dance because it feels right in my heart. I dance because it offers me strength, joy, and healing. I dance for the Creator, for our ancestors, for our Indigenous people, for the sick, for the hurting, for those who no longer can, for my family, for our Mother Earth, and for our residential school survivors, and for all the children who never made it home. As Indigenous people, celebrate our existence proudly each and every day. Embrace your culture and who you are beautifully. Let our ancestors know we are here to stay.
As we've been discussing throughout the hour, there is much to reflect on and also so much to celebrate on this Canada Day. And the conversation happening across this country will hopefully continue beyond today. Tonight, I invite you to tune in for Lights on Canada Day, which shines a spotlight on people and culture that make up our country. The 2-hour program showcases artists and musicians across Canada, 8 p.m. local time on CBC Television and CBC Gem. Thank you very much for watching.
I hope that Canada gets a lot of vaccines and that so schools are safer in September.
What I'd like for Canada is a bright and prosperous post-pandemic future.
We need to figure out how we're going to make this country a better place to live in for everybody.
My hope for a better Canada is that we continue to welcome people.
And my hope for a better Canada is that we help those people grow and prosper.